everyone, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy, and I'm coming at you today with another little unplanned video. I really wanted to take some time and sit down with one of my business BFFs, Meg Casebolt of Love at First Search. So she recently went through a total brand redo, and I'm absolutely loving it. And you know, something that I really tend to do is follow along with brands that I admire and businesses that I admire. So I noticed that Meg was doing some pivots with her recent launch and her recent service offerings to kind of go along with everything that's happening in the world. You know, I've heard a lot in the business world that we should all kind of be moving along business as usual, even if, especially if we're in like an online space. So I know a lot of people that follow me are in the brick and mortar space. So I did give you guys some tips in a couple of videos back about pivoting your business for the COVID-19 global crisis. But today I really want to talk more in generalities for anyone that owns a website, any small business owner, any entrepreneur who's looking to kind of use these next couple of weeks while we're stuck at home really productively. But also I want to, you know, in this interview, I talked with Meg about how it's okay to, you know, give yourself some space and really give yourself some permission to step back. And if you're not feeling like producing a lot of new content, if you don't feel like getting in front of the camera, if selling doesn't feel right to you right now, we give you guys some really smart alternatives. And Meg gives some brilliant insight on things that we could be doing in the meantime to still move our business forward, because let's be honest, we all need sales, we all need revenue in order to survive, in order to provide, you know, food on the table for our families and everything like that. So I really just sat down with Meg and talked about what I'm going to be doing during these next couple weeks while I'm at home with my kids with really limited time and resources, and what she recommends, what she's going to be doing, what she's recommending to her clients, and what she's recommending for me specifically. And what I love about Meg is she still went ahead with her launch. She's still selling. She still is unapologetically getting information in the hands of those that need it. But she made some really smart pivots. Again, not necessarily going about everything business as usual, because, you know, people are not feeling normal. The world is not normal right now. So she made some really smart pivots that I think really speak to her brand core values. And I wanted her to walk you through them. So if you're feeling a little bit unmotivated, if you're feeling a little bit lost at how you should be scheduling your day or spending your time, or what tasks you should be focused on in your business, I hope this gives you some ideas and some clarity around that. And again, even if you're feeling like you're not going to be productive, or again, you don't want to be in front of the camera producing new content, we give you guys some really practical ideas of ways, again, you can still move your business forward while spending time with your family, taking a step back. You know, if your house isn't completely quiet for you to record interviews or podcasts or videos, there's still ways that you can move your business forward. So again, being cognizant of everything that's going around in the world. If you have any questions at all, or if you have tips or any other advice, or if you are going to be doing anything similar to us during these next couple weeks at home, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And again, I'm still going to continue putting out a new video every single week. Luckily, I have tons of videos to share with you guys that are already ready to go. So you guys do not need to worry about an interruption from me. But again, if you have any questions, I'd love for you to let me know in the comments. I always answer them, so I would love to chat with you there. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because again, I do put out at least one video every single week. The last couple of weeks, I've been putting out multiple videos a week just because I want to get you guys all of the information that I can. But don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And something that I didn't mention in the talk with Meg that I wanted to share before I bring her interview on is one big pivot that I'm making is, if you guys saw my email a couple weeks ago, I was originally going to be doing a business plan workshop, which is a paid, more advanced workshop that's really meant to get people from, you know, 50% of their business plan done to 100% done, ready to pitch to banks, investors, landlords, all that stuff. However, now instead of that, on Monday, March 23rd, I'm actually going to be doing another 5-day validate your local business idea workshop. And so what it is, it's all virtual. It's done 100% from the comfort of your own home. But I just wanted to be realistic. And the fact that a lot of people are not going to be able to pitch their ideas, they're not going to be signing leases for brick and mortar businesses right now. It's just not realistic. So instead, I'm going to reschedule that business plan workshop for a couple months from now. I've already notified everyone that's registered and given them a recording of the last one. But I'm going to take it a step back. And for those of you who are in the daydreaming phase and really looking for just a little bit of clarity on, if your business concept is valid, how to perform market research, is your local business concept something that your area can sustain? Is it something that people want? Is it something that people are willing to pay for? And, then we move on and talk about how we can make changes to make sure that your business model can be profitable in your area. So that's one change I'm making. Again, I'm taking a step back because, again, if we're stuck home the next couple months, this 5-day workshop where I walk through all of these concepts with people in a virtual pop-up Facebook group, it really can give the clarity that somebody needs to either move forward with an idea or kind of go back to the drawing board and start from scratch with a new idea. And I want to give people the resources and the knowledge to spend these next couple months productively. And, maybe working on the steps before actually completing a business plan and pitching your idea to landlords and things like that. So if you want more information on that, I'm going to link to my 5-day workshop in the description of this video. And I would love to see you there. It's a small group. There's a very limited number of seats because I really walk through this individually. So it's basically a 5-day course. Every single day, I release a new 20-minute video that walks through the 5 steps that I walk all of my clients through to validate their local business idea. Again, and then I go live every single day and talk through questions, reservations, hesitations, anything like that with people in the Facebook group. So not only do you get the pre-recorded stuff, you also get access to me live every single day. And I actually reduced the price by over 50%. So now it's only $7 to get, again, the whole 5 steps plus daily access to me for an entire week. And it starts March 23rd. So I just wanted to mention that. That's going to be coming up on Monday. So without further ado, though, I want to bring on Meg, and I hope you guys really enjoy this as much as I did. See you guys next week. All right, it is Michelle from Play Cafe Academy, and I am here again welcoming back Meg. So I already gave you an introduction a little bit, but do you want to just kind of tell people, remind them just kind of who you are and who you serve? Sorry,
it's so funny. I can hear your dog. And literally, we've been talking for 10 minutes, no problem. And as soon as we start recording, the dogs are going nuts. My dog's in my office right now because my kids are running around downstairs. And if I let the dog out, then the kids get chased, and it's just a mess. I feel you. Guys, my name is Meg Casebolt. I'm the founder of Love at First Search, where we are singularly devoted to helping women-owned businesses show up in Google search results. And I guess not just Google search results, but just in general getting search results. So Google, YouTube, Pinterest, iTunes, anything that has a search functionality, we want you to show up in it, especially if it drives traffic back to your website. And from there, you can get people to turn from readers into customers.
Awesome. So how have you been doing the last couple of days? If you're watching the replay from a while from now, we're right in the middle of the coronavirus or COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, the crisis. We're kind of all pretty much quarantined. So has anything kind of changed for you in terms of your routine?
Well, I'm slimming down my hours. So I'm accustomed to working from home. That part isn't that strange to me. I have my whole setup here in my home office. So I do have a bit of privacy, but I'm also used to my kids being in some sort of daycare or preschool environment for about 25, 30 hours a week, and we don't have that anymore. So thankfully, my mom lives nearby, and she's also been quarantining. So we're like, okay, as long as we're both quarantining, it's okay to come together, and you can watch the kids 2 days a week. So I've kind of had to cram everything urgent or everything that requires quiet time into these 2 days, where I'm used to having kind of a little bit more white space. And so for me, it's just really been about prioritizing the things that for me are going to make the biggest impact in the short term, and letting some of those kind of long-term plans get pushed back slightly and go, okay, what's the urgent thing that needs to happen right now?
Yeah, so I noticed that you've been doing a couple of things differently. I'm, of course, on your email list, so I've been following along with how you've been kind of handling everything that's going on. And a couple of things I wanted to ask you about, because I thought they were really interesting ideas. First of all, I noticed that you're starting to do live webinars on Facebook. Is that related to being quarantined, or is it just kind of something that was already in the works?
I'm actually doing live webinars. I'm moving my lives from Facebook to YouTube. Oh, so that's a big shift for me, because I feel like I've been going live on Facebook for so many years. And I'm like, you know what? the tough thing about Facebook is that you have a limited reach in your audience. And one of the things that I'm always talking to my customers and my students about is making evergreen content that people can find anytime when they're looking for that topic, and optimizing the content that you're creating so that more people can find it after you've made it. And here I am preaching to my choir in Facebook, because I don't want to spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads to reach new people when they aren't familiar with me. So I'm making the shift. Today's my first time going live on YouTube. But thankfully I already, I know OBS, I know my way around live streaming. So hopefully it shouldn't be too painful. But I made that shift because my goal over this kind of a national emergency period is just to get information about SEO into as many entrepreneurs' hands as possible. Maybe not even entrepreneurs, we'll say small business owners, because a lot of people are struggling to get leads and don't necessarily feel good about promoting themselves in a difficult, environment. But if people can be found in search for the things that they already have, then they can continue to make sales and continue to, have businesses that can support them.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that. So we're definitely going to talk about that. But I'm still hung up on this YouTube thing because I just did my first YouTube live webinar last week.
I saw that. I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, I was like, I got to box her, and then, live.
It was great. I will say there's a huge delay between, like with Facebook, there's like a 5-second delay. With YouTube, it was like 5 minutes.
Really?
So and it was a little bit different.
And you can set a delay on YouTube too. I think, I think YouTube has a lot more spam and scammers and trolls. And so if you have the delay in there, you can delete things before you have to deal with it in real time.
But it was difficult to answer questions. But yeah, it's, YouTube, is a huge priority for me, especially in terms of lead generation and nurturing my audience. So I'm actually going to be doing the same. I didn't realize that you were doing it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I had a great experience. I actually used Zoom to do it. So it was pretty easy.
Yeah, Zoom, I would use Zoom if that were already my webinar platform, but I'm a Demio girl because I like how you can automate your webinars. And now Michelle and I are just tool nerds, guys.
It's okay.
Tools.
Because, to me, I think that this is, obviously I don't want to make light of a very serious situation, but in terms of content creators, this is kind of our time to shine, right? It's, great to put some uplifting content out there. People are going to be home. People are going to be watching, live streams. They're going to be watching YouTube. They're going to be watching, any sorts of content more than ever. And like you said, my biggest priority right now is getting information into as many hands as possible. So if anyone has been kind of putting off a content creation plan or anything like that, I think this is a great time. Obviously, it might be a little bit messy because all of our kids are home and things like that, but now is the time for sure. So I want to go back to what you said before because I think it's really important. But you sent out an email the other day about how, you were about to launch, but it kind of felt weird. So you changed up some of your launch strategies. So can you talk to me about that and what kind of pivots you made in your selling strategy?
Yeah, so about a month ago, I decided to make a course that is basically the basics of how to implement search engine optimization on your website. So thinking about things like making sure that your website is mobile friendly and making sure that it's secure and that it loads quickly. And then also some pieces around local SEO. So making sure that your business shows up in Google Maps and that you have your address in the right places on your site, and going through the basics of not just what is keyword research, but once you have the words that people are looking for, where do you put those words? And it was a bit of a, divine download type of course. I don't know if you've had this happen before where you like see something and you're like, oh, hey, there's a course here. And like 3 days later it was done. And I really feel like
I've not had that experience, although I wish it would come to me.
I know. Sometimes courses become like a very iterative process with me where I'm like communicating with people and I'm running them live and I'm trying to see people's reactions to it. And sometimes I just see not to be too blunt, but I see people making the same mistakes over and over again, and I'm kind of cataloging them and tallying them in my head. So when it came time to like say, here's how to fix things, it came out very seamlessly. I went from outline to full course in about a week. It was craziness.
So you created it first?
created it first because I was giving it to people for free. I was giving it to people who were in my content strategy program because they weren't quite ready to do content strategy before getting these foundation things into place. So for me, it was just going to be a bonus for a while. It was just going to be people who were already in my student population who maybe needed a bit more help with some of the things that weren't specific to content creation. And I launched it on March 8th. And the pandemic really took off on March 11th, right? Like it was declared a pandemic on the night of March 10th, to give you guys an idea of how quickly things changed. Monday morning, I sent out an email and I said, here's this new course that I have. And I had all of my emails ready to go and say, Monday, introduce the course. Wednesday, pop back in your email and let you know who it's right and wrong for. And then Friday, send an email to people who've looked at the sales page to say, why haven't you bought yet? And then Saturday, and I had the full funnel in place for it. Right. And then on Wednesday, I just turned it off because I was just like, I don't feel right going through with this launch as I planned for normal when the world isn't normal anymore. Right. The world is changing. And so I took the weekend and I kind of thought about what felt right in my gut, what felt like it was integrity with the world as it is and the people that I'm trying to serve and the situation that we're all in. And I decided to make the course pay what you want. So instead of, I was going to, and like a little bit of, funnel nerddom here, the course was supposed to be $300. I was selling it for the first week for half of that, for $150. And then all of a sudden I went from $150 to minimum 25, pay what you can, which is the wrong direction as far as funnel strategists would say. Is like you don't discount your course after you've launched it. But I just kind of felt like this is the way that I can be generous and serve my clients. And like the course is made, it's done, it's ready, and people have time to move through it. So it doesn't hurt me that much. Obviously, it hurts my cash flow if I'm, dropping my price by 90%, but it doesn't hurt me as much as it helps other people. And right now the goal is just to get people starting to explore search engine optimization and get themselves in front of the audiences that are looking for them.
Yeah, and let's talk about that as well. So for this particular course, is it like a starter course that might lead into some more advanced training with you or anything like that? Is it are you using it almost as like a step on the customer ladder, or where is this on your spectrum for your clients?
If I had that planned out, I would tell you. I think it's the first step. I think it's a step in the direction of, here are the basics. And if you want more, here's how you can work with me to work on your content strategy. So the idea of the SEO Setup Success course is, here are the things you can do on your website in a weekend. Mm-hmm. And then the upsell from there will probably be my Attract and Activate course, which is all about ongoing long-term content strategy, using SEO as the basis for it. So starting your content, not just from what do I think people are curious about, instead going in and saying, what are people actually looking for? Let me answer their questions. Let me answer it in blog posts. Let me answer it in YouTube videos. Let me answer it in podcasts, and then position myself as an authority using that evergreen content. So not just writing because somebody told me I should blog, but being incredibly strategic about it. So I think this course is the first step to that group program, which is what Attract and Activated is. It is a self-paced course, but also you're meeting with me for a couple months regularly to really see how you can implement it in your own business.
Got it. So, it could benefit your cash flow even more in the long run by having a lot of people kind of enter this course. So it's definitely being generous, but it also could, help people understand the problems that they, maybe didn't even know they had, and kind of help them, start with the basics and then, like you said, kind of keep moving forward. And I invested in the course. I'm really excited. I feel like I've always had the SEO basics, but I've never had like a website overhaul. I've never had every time I publish a blog post, these are the things I have to do. I've never had any sort of plan in place. So I was just looking for some structure. And something that I heard right when this quarantine stuff started happening is, and I can't give credit to whoever said this because I looked and I can't find a good source, but somebody said, when the fishermen can't go out to sea, they repair their nets. So what I was kind of thinking, and to your point, getting information into people's hands, like I'm trying to use this time for myself as a time to not necessarily sell something brand new or do something completely different, but I really want to go back and look at all my systems and making sure that every single thing I'm planning on doing, like whether it's a blog post, whether it's a YouTube video, just making sure everything is very intentional because like you said, our hours are going to have to be cut. So, we better make sure that every single hour that we're spending is, a very purposeful hour and we're making the most of it. So like, for example, this interview. So, we're recording it. It's going to be made into a podcast. I'm probably going to pull tips for a blog post. It's going to go on YouTube. It's going to go on social media. So when I put this on my calendar, I knew that I was going to be extremely intentional with it. But then even taking that next step with, these SEO strategies that I'm super excited to learn, I'm going to make sure that, when I do publish the blog post, that I'm using the right keywords. And obviously this is a different part, but I'm going to go through, my YouTube tags and make sure that I'm really making the most out of every single piece of content. So I think it's so smart what you said about making sure that, while we're maybe not, going full force with selling, we're still making sure that, people get the information that they need in their hands.
Absolutely. And I think what you were just saying about how we need to make every hour that we're spending working on our businesses count is so important, because when you're creating content that can be searchable, then it can last for a much longer amount of time. If you're spending all your time in Instagram stories, you might be engaging really well with the audience that already knows you, and you might be getting a lot of clicks and likes and feedback from that group, but you're not then being found by a new audience, and it expires in 24 hours. Whereas if you're creating the thoughtful, strategic, evergreen content, whether that's again, blogging, video, whatever that looks like for you, you can create it one time. You can repurpose it in a lot of ways. You can promote it out to your audience forever because it's evergreen content. I mean, this isn't quite evergreen because we're talking about, a pandemic that hopefully will settle down eventually. But there are always going to be things coming up. And if you have content, if you have content that can continue to bring new people to your website, it can continue to grow your audience for you. Even, you write a piece of content once and it can be found forever. So spend a little bit of time on your website, which should be your home base. It should be your best employee in the way that it is able to bring new people to you. If you only have an hour to spend, it might be a good time to record a video or write a blog post or find a way to create something that can work for you forever.
Yeah, so 2 questions coming from that. And this is something that has been on my list for forever. I don't know why I picked now to do it. It was kind of a mistake. But I decided this week I was going to move all of my courses and all of my content from Thinkific to Kajabi. So I've already made the transition, but I haven't moved my students yet because I'm terrified about the search engine optimization ramifications. But I'm not moving my blog yet, so don't worry. I'm still holding that back. But that's another reason why I invested in the course, because I want to make sure that if I'm going to be starting something new on a new platform, because I am going to be using Kajabi for hosting my podcast and things like that. So if anyone too is using this time to kind of start something new, I think it's worthwhile to invest in an expert or invest in some sort of education to make sure that, if you're going to use this time, you might as well do it right and not just kind of half-ass everything. I don't like using curse words here. But, as soon as I decided to make that transition and to build out a lot of my sales pages and a lot of my my podcast page on Kajabi, I was like, you know what, I need Meg. But I was like, I need Meg. But it was one of those times where I just don't have the bandwidth right now to invest on one-on-one. So I think that, investing in online education right now is smart because you can do it at any time. And again, I knew that if I just transitioned everything over, it would be a mess. And I needed, before I made the full transition, I needed to make sure that I was setting a plan in place for every single time I put, something new on there. But the question that I had for you is, if some of us are kind of struggling right now, because are you a type 3 or a type 4?
I'm a type 7.
Type 7. Oh, I forget. What is that?
That is the enthusiast.
Enthusiast? Okay. So I am a type 3, so I'm having a hard time right now with like not producing as much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're finding any sort of like mental blocks around this, but I am having trouble with, not being able to follow my content schedule because, I do a lot of video recording. I've been re-recording some lessons and I just haven't met my deadlines. And to me, that is very like devastating. So in terms of like content repurposing, do you have any tips on like the cost benefit of creating new versus repurposing? Is there like a time and place for both? Or so I have, just to give you a little background, I have a couple blog posts that are just doing really well on Evergreen. And so as a type 3, can I still feel good about like emailing that back out or sharing it? Does it have any benefit? Can
Totally.
I get on the back?
Yeah, especially if you know that it's a blog post that converts and you know that your audience hasn't seen it for a while, why not resend it out? Because if it's still relevant and it's evergreen, it can't hurt to have them see it again. Worst case scenario, people will say, oh, I've already seen this post, and they won't click on it. But nobody's going to unsubscribe from your email list because you're giving them something of value, even if it's something that that you created a while ago. And especially right now, if you can take the piece of content you've already created and reframe it as, here's why I'm talking about this now. It
Right.
doesn't just have to be like, hey, I'm lazy, here are my greatest hits, right? Like, no, it can be, I know that a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of questions about this topic lately. So if this is something you're struggling with, here's a piece of content that I wrote a year ago. You can even tell people, I wrote this a year ago, it's still relevant. It doesn't all have to be fresh and new every time. I think maintaining consistency in the frequency of reaching out to people is more important than waiting until something new is ready to go, especially in this time of shortened hours and decreased. I think a lot of us are having some anxiety and having trouble with motivation. And so having the capacity to give yourself the grace to use what you already have is not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's true. And something that just kind of popped into my mind because, I am a content creator. I'm constantly creating videos, podcasts, blog posts, things like that. So now that I've had to really, dwindle that down a little bit. I mean, luckily I, had a bunch of content batched, but because I'm just not producing as much, I feel like I need to be doing something. But, if, say I'm going to be sitting home on the couch, I have a blog, and, I have time, but it's not necessarily quiet time to produce content. Do you have any tips of things that we can do, like kind of go through old like posts or website content or anything while we're kind of just home, but not, not home alone?
Yeah, I totally know this feeling. I write about half my blog posts from my phone. So I totally get it because as soon as I get out my computer, my kids are climbing all over me, but somehow I can write from my phone and kind of be able to put it down and pick it back up. So 1000% feel you on the, it might be work time, but it's not alone time front. So I would say that, it's just as good to repurpose or update an old blog post as it is to create something new. So if you're feeling like, I don't know what I have to write, or a blog post takes me 2 hours and I only have half an hour, go in and update something you've already written to make it better. So here are some things to think about when you're updating content. Is there something else that I have to say about this? Maybe you don't have enough content to do a whole nother blog post, but you do have something else that you didn't put into the first one and people are asking about, and you want to give some sort of content update. If you guys really want to nerd out with me on this, I would recommend you go into your Google Search Console, which is a free tool given to you by Google. You can sign up at search.google.com, and it will tell you all the keywords that you're already ranking for every page of your site. And you can do that. You can look at that and say, what are some keywords I wasn't expecting? I have a free training on my website for just specifically how to do that. So I will, I'll share that post with you to put in the links
Yeah,
here.
definitely. Please do.
But basically, if you have something that you're ranking number 50 for and you didn't even mean to rank for that, then this is a great opportunity to update the post that's ranking for it and be able to make more of it and be able to climb your way up those Google ranks because you're already established in that search term. Sorry if I got a little bit nerdy there, guys, but there are absolutely ways to improve and optimize what you already have. I call this the lather, rinse, repeat stage of content creation because it doesn't always have to be new. There's going to hit a point, no matter what industry you're in, where you're just tapped out. You don't know what else to say. You feel like you've written it all. Okay, cool. Go look at what you're being found for and improve that and republish it as something new. And Google will say, oh, this is updated. I want to figure out what's different about this. The Google crawler bots are pretty good at when you update content, you can either just wait for Google to notice, or you can go into your search console and say, I updated this piece, please go back and take a look at it. And when you do that, you can be able to rank higher for that. I have clients that we've made some of these little tweaks and renamed posts, and within 2 weeks they're ranking 10 or 15 positions higher in the search engine results. So it doesn't always have to be brand new, start from scratch, empty cursor situation. Sometimes the better use of your time is to figure out what you're ranking for and optimize what you already have.
Yeah, I asked that question for myself basically. I have so many blogs that I'm ranking really highly for, but I know it's not my best work. They were like some of my first couple blog posts. Because I kind of did everything backwards. I think instead of waiting to build authority and tackling like the bigger concepts last, I tackled the big concepts first, which it wasn't a huge issue, but now, the stuff that's out there, it was from when I first started. It's not my best work. And unfortunately, you can't go back and like re-upload YouTube videos and keep the views or anything like that. I wish that I could. I did update a few thumbnails and a few tags. Similar to what I'm doing with the blog post, but I really just need to go back and take care of those couple blog posts and maybe, like you said, repurpose, turn them into YouTube videos, podcasts, so that, my time spent on that content is reduced by like 90% because the content's already there. I just have to put it into a new medium. So I think that's
And I think something else that you specifically can think about based on the situation that you just described is that you may have older blog posts that are related to newer ones that you created. And what you want to do there is just put links to the blog posts on similar topics to each other, especially if some of your blog posts are doing well on search and others are good but not ranking, but you want to get people there. You can make a link from a post that's performing well on search. You can link to one that's not performing as well. And there's this weird SEO term. It's actually called SEO juice. You can transfer some of your SEO juice from a high performing post to a low performing post. Now, obviously you don't want to like just fill these high performing posts with like links to everything on your site. You need to be, but if it's related, you can curate what is related to what you've already talked about that's performing well, and put those links in and then produce it, publish it as a new piece of content. Not as a new piece of content. Let me be clear. We don't want to like copy paste as a new piece of content. We can just change the date on it and make it look newer than it is. So even if you wrote it in 2018 and you make a bunch of even not super visible changes, maybe you change up your alt text, maybe you add some more cross links, maybe you update your post title. Try not to update your post URL after it has established itself, because if you change the URL, then either you have to set up a redirect or Google can get kind of confused about where things live, but you can change anything else on your page. That's the nice thing about websites is that I like to think of websites more like gardens where we are going through, we're cultivating, we're weeding, we're fertilizing, we're able to make changes to things. It's not a one and done piece of art that you hang on the wall. It's kind of like a living organism. So you can update anything. Nothing is locked in stone.
Yeah, and that is something that I think I have to force myself to do over the next couple of weeks is that maintenance work, because it's one of those things like I use Asana and I always have it on my task list and I always am moving it by like a month. Like every single month I'm like, oh, I'll have time to do this month. I'll have time to sit down for a couple hours and, refresh some, links and things like that. But I was always afraid that number one, it would hurt my SEO. And number two, that, it would get in the way of producing new content. But now, now that we are kind of finally forced to slow down, I think it's really important for all of us, to go back to that, quote that I mentioned, if we're not going out and fishing and we're not, launching and we're not doing, that sort of like hard sales stuff, that we need to go back and look at all of our systems and, really, like you said, weed and cultivate and things like that, and not just, always worry about planting new or, things like that.
I think that, like, if another metaphor that I like to use is like our businesses are like trees, and sometimes our branches are growing up and out, like in the summer and the spring, we're fruitful and we're producing a ton. And sometimes our roots are going down. And this might just be a time where your roots are getting deeper and you're getting more comfortable and you're setting up your systems and you're establishing yourself and you're grounding yourself. And maybe you're not as visible during this time because you're creating something that's more long-term and you're putting in your roots, whatever that looks like for you. So don't feel like, oh my God, I'm not promoting myself. I'm not launching something right now. How am I possibly going to make money? Yeah, we still need to make money. Don't get me wrong. We absolutely still need to make money, but you may also have some time to improve your systems. And like you're saying, you have this, this is something that you should be doing. It's an Asana task. And you say to yourself, I need to have a couple hours to do that. Maybe now's the time for that couple hours. Or maybe instead of it being, let me set aside 5 hours to update everything on my website, let me set aside 45 minutes to do 2 posts.
Yeah, that's really smart. Yeah, because I know I'm not going to sit down and do this for 5 hours.
No, I hate that. I get paid by clients to help them do this. And even then I'm like, oh, it's so much work, right? Like I'm the one going in and doing the research, and then I tell them exactly what to do. And then sometimes they'll even hire me to have somebody go in and do it for them. And it's still like, oh, this is so much work, right? None of this is easy, but it does pay off.
Right. So speaking of your clients, do you have a lot of like brick and mortar clients or not typically?
I would say probably about 20% of my clients are local. And then another 80% are running some sort of online business. Some of them will work with people in their local communities. So it's like a copywriter who goes to a networking event and meets a brick and mortar business. So my client's technically the copywriter who can work with anyone, but they're often working with local businesses. So I still need to know local SEO, but I'm not often hired by local businesses. I'm usually hired by the online businesses, if that makes any sense.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because, with online businesses, there's, it's pretty easy, I found, to rank locally for like certain keywords because there's a lot less competition. But when we're talking about, like Facebook ads or something, there is so much market saturation. So I could definitely see where they would need a lot more guidance and help. But in terms of us who run brick and mortar businesses who kind of are forced to put like a halt on like all in-person sales, do you have any tips in terms of like lead generation or anything like that using search during this time where we're kind of, forced to take a step back from the actual like face-to-face work?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard question. I would say, and there's no right answer, right? So I would say any content that you can create that's evergreen could be useful for you. So if you're thinking like down the road, I want to start to amplify the number of parties that I'm offering in my brick and mortar space, this might be the time to start thinking about writing your sales page and any content around why it's a good idea to have your child do this kind of party and what are the types of parties that you can do and what kind of kid is this a good party for and what do these packages look like and what do you get, and just like starting to think through what you want to offer eventually. But also knowing that maybe the time that you're able to put into it now is not something that you'll have in 3 months when things come back online, not online, come back to life in a way. The world kind of hopefully will start turning pretty soon. So thinking 90 days into the future about what you can do to offset this decrease right now, to offset this kind of cash flow thing going on. And what are some opportunities that you can put out there? Or what are the questions that people always ask you? Maybe just coming up with an FAQ page on your website, so that when people are looking for those things and they go to Google, you might be the one that shows up in those searches. Anytime that people ask you a question, just kind of file it away. And then later on, go do some keyword research and figure out, is this something people are looking for? Because I always think, like, if people are asking me a question in real life or in one of my groups, there's 100 times more people going to Google and asking that question because they don't have me to ask. So if somebody's asking you a question, chances are they're Googling it too.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know you mentioned, obviously Google Search Console, but can you remind us, do you have another tool that you use for keyword research?
A free tool that I like is Ubersuggest.
Ubersuggest. Okay, because I used to use Keywords Everywhere and they stopped.
Yeah, they're not free anymore. Another one that I like that I think is really helpful in situations like this where people's behavior has changed, their search behavior has changed, is Google Trends. So that's at trends.google.com. It will tell you.
Yeah, I think you did a video on this recently, right? Somebody did.
I didn't, but I probably should.
Something out there because I had never heard of it before, and I was like, oh, and I had to look. I had some trouble using it. It's just one word, right? Or is it like a phrase that you can type in?
No, you can type in a phrase. It's a little bit limiting in terms of, you need to type in the exact phrase people are looking for. I have a one-on-one client that I work with that produces downloadable and printable materials for preschool classrooms. And so we were doing some research about what are people looking for hand washing. And the historical data that usually shows up in the keyword research tools, I use a paid tool called SEMrush, like what people were searching for a year ago around hand washing is not relevant to what's happening right now. So instead I went to Google Trends and I was like, okay, are people looking for hand washing one words, hand washing two words, hand washing posters, hand washing books, hand washing information? And then I started to look at some of those other rising trends that are coming up that it shows you. And it's like, people are looking for a 20-second hand washing song. Yes, that is the perfect thing to teach to preschoolers. So let's create, a product that we can call hand washing poster, because more people are looking for posters than for books or signs. And then let's also create a post about a 20-second hand washing song, because that's what people are looking for, right? And knowing in the moment what people are looking for, not just what they looked for a year ago, but what they're looking for yesterday, can be really helpful. Obviously, it can't go into as much depth as the historical data and the keyword research tools, but if you're looking for something right now in the moment, that's the best tool I can think of.
Yeah, so just one more quick question before we wrap up. But for us content creators or small local businesses, how much should we be taking advantage of all of these very trendy sorts of topics and keywords? If we have a limited amount of time, should I be cranking out posts related to the crisis or the epidemic, or should I be focusing more on evergreen content? Do you have a suggestion on how much content we should be creating around this stuff that's going to go away in a couple months?
I would err on the side of creating evergreen content. I think that I would say if you're going to create content, you can post on your Facebook page, you can post on places where people are looking right now. But when you're thinking about the content that you're creating that you want to be found for long term, don't spend a lot of time on content that's going to be expired in a year.
Right, that's true.
In a year, nobody's looking for, sanitizing procedures for coronavirus. Yes. Please, nobody, I hope it'll be over by then. But, but they'll still be looking for other things that are related to you. So if you do have limited time right now, put it into the evergreen stuff that people will be looking for 6 months, a year, 5 years from now.
Yep. I did one YouTube video on ways to pivot your indoor playground for this coronavirus. And I saw a huge spike, but then, people are kind of moving on. So again, I kind of, instead of that, I've been sharing some of my more evergreen content about, how to create standard procedures, how to train your staff on cleaning procedures and things like that. Because I did see a nice spike, but then I'm I spent all this time on this video, and in 6 months, hopefully, again, knock on wood, it's going to be, pretty much useless. So
right.
I took advantage of it a little bit, yeah. But I also went into it knowing, okay, I'm not going to spend my whole life doing this because, I'm not going to spend fancy editing. I, was just sitting in my dining room. I was I want to get this information out there, and I'm going to see a spike, but I just know that it's not going to be something that moves my business forward long term. So I think just going in with that expectation maybe.
Yeah, I think, maybe an 80-20 rule here, where 20% of your content can be time sensitive, and you can hope to get that spike of new people finding you that could then subscribe to your channel, join your email list, buy a gift certificate for your business, whatever your call to action is, you can get a spike in those. But also thinking about exactly what you said. This is hopefully a short-term problem. And so we want to be really careful to create content that will help us more long-term than just the next couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And just one thing I wanted to end on, you said it when we were talking before, but something that I love about you is that you do have business core values. And something that you said before we started recording that I thought was a nice note to kind of end on is you said something about how you're serving your community right now. Do you want to just kind of summarize that a little bit?
Sure. So I actually just went through a rebrand in the past 2 months. And one of the things that my operations director made me do, forced me to sit down and do, so that way we can put it into practice in the team and the business I'm running, is to write up my core values. And for me, those are authenticity and honesty and generosity. So authenticity in terms of kind of cutting through I know we're not supposed to, we're cutting through the BS of a lot of this digital marketing stuff and saying do this if it works for you. And if it doesn't, don't worry about it, right? Not just trying to push what works for me and what I'm trying to sell, but thinking about who is the whole business owner that I'm trying to serve, and thinking about their business as a whole and not just their search traffic. I also, a transparency and cooperation space is really important to me, and making sure that I'm always available to my audience. And then my third core value is generosity, and just trying as much as possible to give what I can. Obviously, I still have to get paid at some point, but during this time where people are home and their finances are a little funny and they don't necessarily know what their cash flow is going to look like, as I was saying at the beginning, it felt really out of integrity for me to say, please give me $300 for this. It just didn't feel right. So I thought, okay, what are some ways that I can serve my audience where they are now, with the knowledge that people have emotional memories about brands.
Right.
And that for me, it's not even just about SEO. It's about the way that you feel about my brand and the way that you feel about what you can do in your business, and the empowerment that happens in being able to make decisions about what works for you. And so I dropped the price of my self-paced course. I started doing more free trainings, whether that's, publicly on YouTube Live, or I'm letting people just book me into their communities to give free trainings about SEO that are specific to their needs, because it's hard. It's really hard right now. And there's not a lot that I can do. I felt a little bit helpless for a while of okay, my kids are home from school. That's all I got. Right. Yeah. So I had to figure out what are the needs that I can serve. And I was listening a lot to what people were saying in the online space and trying to figure out what are some ways that I can provide for them, which may not pay off financially, but may just feel good for me as a business owner to have these conversations. So yeah, that's kind of my approach to it. And I bought the domain Generous SEO about 3 years ago. And I'm yes, I finally get a chance to use it. all of my domain hoarding finally comes into play. So I was able to put up a page last weekend. My kids got, I want to say, grounded like a plane, but they're not grounded, right? My kid's school got canceled on Tuesday, and by Monday, or on Friday, and by Monday I was okay, here are the ways that I can support communities of people who are stuck at home, and aren't able to go to networking events and aren't able to go to conferences. What's an alternative to still get those leads that you can't just go handshake to?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, people have emotional memories related to brands. So I'm sure people will be thankful for it. And I think that was, as digital product creators, we have a little bit of flexibility because, like you said, it was already created.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have a direct cost every single time you sell a course. So I think that, as, again, digital product based businesses, we are a little bit lucky because we have more flexibility. So thank you for sharing that. I thought it was a really good tip because I see so many people saying, just business as usual, but that didn't feel right to me either. I'm still, selling. I'm still serving my audience, but it's not normal. The world is not normal. People don't feel normal. So I'm kind of taking, similar, approaches in more of like a service approach. So thank you for.
Yeah, and still coming up with tactical things you can do, because you can't wish away a virus, but there are things that you can do to move yourself forward so that hopefully coming out of this, you'll be in a better position. So that's kind of where I came to. That was what felt right in my gut. And everyone has to listen to their own guts and say what works for you. What worked for me may not feel good to you, so don't do it.
Right. But I love the different perspectives. And I'm going to tell you right now, as soon as we hop off this call, I'm going to go into Asana and I'm going to schedule time like over just like 40, like you said, 40 minutes a day or even 20 minutes a day, just doing one post a day is, I know it's going to have the long-term benefits. So just preparing not only my blog post, but kind of, when I'm moving my website over, I'm going to be more intentional with like the alt tags and things like that. So I'm super excited. First, I'm going to sit down and watch your course. Number one. So I'm going to schedule that in. And then I am really going to spend this time, again, repairing my systems, coming up with an SEO strategy. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope a lot of people, feel that, same calling to kind of go back, take a step back, repair what you already have so that you have that long-term benefit and don't feel so much pressure to be constantly producing new things. It's good to keep consistency, like you said, but as a type 3, I like need to always be doing something. I need to always be achieving. So this is hard for me, but I know I have to do it. So thank you for the little push.
Yeah, I think we have to, run the line between what is productive, because we have less time spent in these kind of in-person meetings and we're stuck at home. So we have this opportunity, but also we're going through a crisis. And this is, as a world, as a global entity, we are in a trauma situation, and giving yourself some space in your body to relax the tension and not feel like you have to just pile more and more things on yourself. Like spending some time with your family might trump getting out that new video or blog post, and knowing that you have to give yourself space for whatever works for you in your life is really important right now.
Absolutely. Such a good reminder. So thank you so much for joining me again. It was so fun having you. I really appreciate it. And I'll be in touch. I'll be watching your live webinar. I'll share the link.
Sounds good.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Great catching up with you, Michelle.
All right. Bye.